Hello, everyone. My name is Kathy Anderson. I'm a school counselor with Duval County Public Schools. Give me just a moment to bring up my presentation. This PowerPoint is going to provide families with the credits, assessments, and grade point averages required to obtain a high school diploma. So let me get that up. One moment. There we go. And according to Florida law, students must meet certain academic requirements to earn a standard high school diploma from a public school. This means that students must pass required courses, earn a minimum number of credits, earn a minimum grade point average, and pass required statewide assessments. And students who meet these requirements but do not pass the required assessments will receive a certificate of completion, which is not equivalent to a standard high school diploma. Passing scores for the statewide assessments are determined by the State Board of Education. And so I'm going to get a little bit more into this to explain the differences. And after viewing this PowerPoint, if you and me sharing this information with you, if you have additional questions that are specific to your child, please reach out to our school counselor and schedule an appointment. But we will have a general Q&A at the very end. So the state of Florida requirements for a standard high school diploma versus a certificate of completion. A student who earns the 24 required credits or required 18 credits under our section state statute 1002.31055 and passes the assessments required under state assessment 1008.223 and achieves a 2.0 GPA shall be awarded a standard high school diploma. So a student who earns the required 24 credits or the required 18 credits, but fails to pass the assessments required under a standard high school diploma or achieve a 2.0 shall be awarded a certificate of completion in a form prescribed by the State of Board of Education. So, and students are encouraged to continue taking the required assessments to receive their high school diploma at a later date. So the 24 credit standard diploma versus the 18 credit acceleration option diploma. I'm gonna focus on these two, but I'm also gonna just share with you what the 5 diploma options are. There's the 24 credit and then the 18 credit Excel option. That stands for academically challenging curriculum to enhance learning. There's also career and technical education option, the IB or International Baccalaureate curriculum option, and then the Advanced International Certificate of Education, which is the ACE curriculum. So in addition to these 5 options available for students to earn a standard diploma, the Rule 6A Florida Administrative Code 1.09963, the high school graduation requirements for disabilities, students with disabilities outlines 2 additional options that students with disabilities may complete. But again, for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to focus on our 2 most popular standard diplomas, which are shown on your screen here. And students may elect from the other 3 options who are interested in electing from those options are encouraged to see their school counselor for those diploma requirements. So testing information, there's been lots of changes over the years. Especially in the last several years. And so I'm just going to kind of try to break this part down to hopefully in a way that can be best understood. The English Language Arts ELA assessment students, the assessment that students must pass to graduate to get a high school diploma is determined by each student's year of enrollment in grade 9. So the requirement depends on when you entered the 9th grade. The Florida Assessment of Student Thinking, which is the FAST assessments, aligned to the benchmarks for excellent student thinking which is the best standards, were administered for the first time last year. Students must earn a passing grade 10 ELA reading score in the third progress monitoring window to meet this graduation requirement. So they take the test 3 times through the year, and the third one is the one that counts towards graduation when they are in the 10th grade. In accordance with Florida statute, all students enrolled in grade 10 are required to participate in the grade 10 ELA assessment, regardless of whether they have a passing concordant score on file. Because there's different, if you don't pass these assessments that I just mentioned, there are other ways to meet those assessment requirements. So for the reading, there is the SAT and the ACT, which are national tests. And then for the Algebra 1 EOC, again, there's SAT and ACT, but also PSAT and the FSA Geometry EOC. So while the grade 10 Florida State Assessments ELA was administered for the final time this past spring, it will continue to be offered during the fall and spring as a retake for students who need it to meet their graduation requirement. And any students enrolled in grade 11 or adult education may not participate in the FAST grade 10 ELA PMA PM3 administration, in the grade 11 adult education. However, in this school year and beyond, 2023 and 2024 and beyond, students with the grade 10 FSA ELA requirement may satisfy it by earning an alternate passing score on the FAST ELA reading retake. And before I go on just to talk about the math, the Algebra 1, I know this is a lot of information, and that's why we try to break it down in this chart above. But the school where the child will be taking the test, they know exactly which test it is that they need to pass. It all depends, again, on the cohort year that they entered the 9th grade. So again, if you have specific questions about which test your child is to take, your school counselor may answer that question. The Algebra 1 end of course assessment that students must pass to graduate for a standard high school diploma is determined by when they completed Algebra 1, and students who complete an applicable course last year are required to pass the best Algebra 1 EOC assessment. In accordance with Florida statute, the students who are enrolled in Algebra 1 or an equivalent course are required to participate in the Algebra 1 EOC assessment, regardless of whether they have a passing comparative score on file. And then the last piece of information about the FSA Algebra 1 EOC is to share, is just like I had said regarding the reading test, is that this one was administered for the final time in the fall, last fall of 2022, but students can continue, it continues to be available as a retake administration in the spring and fall for those who need it to meet their graduation requirement. And just to reiterate, students may also meet this requirement by earning a passing score on the best Algebra 1 EOC. And then once the scale is adopted for the best Algebra 1 EOC, which they actually have already adopted, students with the requirement will be able to use an alternate passing score on the best scale. So again, there's a lot of information I'm throwing out at you, but the slide here, I think, helps break that down into the most, into a more simple form that hopefully makes some sense. I wanted to also mention, some of you may have heard about a waiver for the test requirements, and there was one, but there is not one any longer. So just to clarify, in 2021, on April 9th, the Department of Education and our Commissioner Richard Corcoran, used an executive authority to support the Florida Division of Emergency Management to ensure, as you all know, that the Florida citizens were kept safe in response to COVID-19. So for students who were expected to graduate in the spring of 2021, a school district was authorized to waive the required state assessments for graduation. If the district determines on a case-by-case basis that the student's high school record established a comparable level of achievement. So if any of you have a student who was scheduled to graduate in the class of 2021, you would want to contact your school counselor to determine if that waiver is eligible, if your child's eligible for that waiver. So the diploma options, as I was mentioning, is your standard diploma and then your certificate of completion. So broken down here in the 3 columns, the standard diploma, you have to meet, well, all 3, you have to meet either the 18 or the 24 required credits, depending if you're on a 24 credit option or an 18 credit option. The standard high school, you need to have a 2.0 for that diploma and then pass the assessments. For the certificate of completion in the middle column here, this is awarded to students who have completed all the requirements for the standard high school diploma, including a cumulative grade point average of a 2.0 on a 4.0 scale, except for the passage of the state approved graduation test or alternative assessment. So they're meeting the credits and the GPA. And the GPA is a requirement for graduation. Students who entered the 9th grade during the 97 and 1998 school year and thereafter, so that includes everybody here, must have a 2.0 cumulative GPA for the courses required for graduation. And then this last column is the certificate of completion that can be awarded if the GPA and assessments are not met, but the credit requirements are met. So what can a high school diploma get you? It can allow you to apply to post-secondary institutions, so colleges, universities, 4-year colleges, 2-year colleges, community colleges, vocational colleges. It also gives you financial aid opportunities. You can enlist in the military, and you can also go into the entry-level workforce. Just as a reminder, though, and I'm going to talk about certificate of completion now and what you can do with that with a certificate of completion, but I just want to remind you that this is not a high school diploma. It doesn't grant the same access to opportunities available to students who would complete high school with a standard high school diploma. So students who earn a college placement test eligible certificate of completion, COC, may be admitted to a state and community college, but there are limitations. So the limitations would be on the program opportunities. They're ineligible to receive financial aid. Limitations on career opportunities that require a high school diploma for licensure or certification. They're ineligible to enlist in the U.S. Armed Forces, and then also limitations to entry-level workforce requiring a high school diploma as a minimum job qualifier. So again, they can go to a community college, but there are limitations. But again, we encourage students that haven't met the assessments, even after they get a COC or certificate of completion, to continue taking the assessment so that they can get a diploma. Here is a slide on potential earnings and unemployment rates by educational attainment. It's from a few years ago, but it gives the median usual weekly earnings. And these categories reflect only the highest level of educational attainment. They do not take into account completion of training programs in the form of, let's say, apprenticeships or other on-the-job trainings, because that can influence the earnings and unemployment rates as well. So what kind of economic benefit to Jacksonville would it be to Jacksonville if all students graduated on time and increased the overall graduation rate? So our community's graduation rate is 81%. And if we were able to work together to increase it to 90%, that could mean many things, including, let's say, new jobs, $16.4 million in earnings. So an increase in savings on healthcare. So these are just a few things that could positively impact our city, ultimately our students. Something else to mention, and this is a change for this year, and I also am going to write myself a note to tell you about another change. But for the purpose of what slide we're on right now. So students, again, participating in commencement ceremonies does not make you a high school graduate. So while there is no observable difference between students receiving a high school diploma and a certificate of completion, certificate of completions are not graduates. They're not afforded the same rights and opportunities as students receiving a high school standard diploma. So the change for this year is, so it used to be, if you had a certificate of completion, you could still walk with your class in May. But starting this year, because of board policy 4.90, students receiving a certificate of completion, COC, are not eligible to participate in the spring commencement ceremony, the one in May. But they may participate in the summer commencement ceremony if they have participated in all of the grade 10 ELA administrations, the PSAT, SAT, and or ACT school days, if applicable, that they were eligible for. So as long as they were trying to pass the tests, and they get a COC, although they cannot participate in the spring ceremony, they can participate in the summer ceremony. And this slide, I already actually read over this, but I'll use this to say that the example here is, where we say there's no observable difference between students receiving a high school diploma and certificate of completion. Over the summer, there may be students graduating with a high school diploma along with those graduating with a certificate of completion. And there wouldn't be anything observable difference between each of these types of outcomes at the ceremony. Also, some of you may have heard there's an online requirement for graduation, and Ms. Anderson hasn't mentioned that. That has gone away. It is no longer a Florida requirement, and in this case, a district requirement. So students are no longer required to complete one online course to graduate. So there are lots of different resources that are available to students. The Khan Academy is a free, personalized practice tool that students can link to in preparation for the SAT, which in turn can help them prepare for the ACT. And students can see their school counselor for additional information. Again, so we encourage you to schedule a conference with your school counselor about graduation status and upcoming testing opportunities, scheduling conferences with teachers about any questions or concerns or status of coursework in those classes. If your school has any test prep or boot camps, or if when there are announced test prep or boot camps in the community, I encourage you to take advantage of that. Do some practice tests, students, with the SAT and the ACT, and using Khan Academy, and then registering for tests and retaking these tests until meeting the needed requirements for the graduating class and the diploma you are trying to get. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me tonight.